Hello everybody and welcome to my channel. I am Moody, and in today's video we're going to make a start on part 4 of the Sculpting the Female series. So yeah, we're going to be basically sculpting the weapons that the character's going to be using. I believe they're called Virtuous Treaty and Virtuous Contract, but regardless. So yeah, well, how we're going to make the blades, we're going to use the tube tool and we're going to basically drag out the tube all the way to the length of the blade, and we're going to use the profile tool to make it thinner and give it that blade edge. I do try a few different things on this particular piece of decoration here, just to start getting some of these smaller pieces done and out of the way. It ends up, I end up using a mask extract still, but you know, after realizing that the reference wasn't like laid out straight, it wasn't level, I started using the grid to snap some of the points to, and then you know, I do an extraction from there. I do actually straighten out the blade and end up rotating the reference so that it's just a little bit easier to work with, but it's by the by. So yeah, this ends up being in an extraction, and then I flip it over to match the other side and just carve a bit of detail in. So yeah, I'll jump back in when we move off of this particular part of the sword. Okay, so what we end up doing is duplicating the tube extraction that I did, and just shrinking it down to make the top part of the blade here, and then basically using the tube tool again to make the handle just so that it's there, and then you know, we'll duplicate the blade, we'll validate that, and then we'll just start sculpting it and moving it around to make it look, you know, like a kind of cover for the top half of the blade, or whatever that is. I'm not really sure, if I'm being honest. I just know it's there. So yeah, I mean, again, it's a lot of using the tube tool and basic shapes and just cutting them into you know, into what we need, or at least the representation of what's supposed to be there, and then you know, a lot of the detail sculpting comes later. So again, I'll let this play for a little bit longer and I'll jump back in when something else or something interesting comes up. Okay, so we're going to start working on the hilt. I do square this off a bit later because I don't think it's supposed to be round. I just grabbed a sphere because I didn't really think about it too much. I do make a few mistakes here, like pulling it around and moving off the axis, which rotated it and things like that. And you know, it's going to be a lot of back and forth messing around with it until you get what you're looking for in terms of what the hilt is, you know. I mean, I guess that's the process for most sculpting, you know. You keep pulling it around and carving into it until you get something that looks like what you need. Yeah, but I mean, again, it comes out pretty nicely. There we go, with a merge on the whole thing, which is going to smooth it out, you know, make it look a bit nicer. And again, I think we're going to move on to maybe the wraps around the handle in a second. I can't be sure. I know we start cutting up the bottom half of the hilt here, and just yeah, working on that, because there's like, if you can't really see the reference very clearly in the image I've got here, but it actually that's cut out of the upper half of the hilt. So I end up, like I said, cutting that away, sculpting this all together, and just making it feel like that's how it's locked together on the sword, you know. It came out alright. I'm pretty happy with it. Yeah, much of the same here. We're going to pull this back because you can see it comes out over the handle. I did think I realised there that the handle wasn't actually straight, so I again quickly switched the grid on. I don't know if you saw that because it was quite quick that I did that, and snapped it into a straight line. And then again, you know, just sculpting it out into the shape that we can see on the reference there. And then I do an extraction off the top of it for the kind of white metal or silver or whatever it is that goes around the outside of it there. We'll come back and sculpt some detail into this later. I know that the detail I sculpt into this doesn't actually match with what the sword probably looks like for real, but I'm really only looking for a as close of representation as I can, muster, because the focus of this video is on sculpting the female form rather than sculpting the sword. So this is just a quick 10-minute video to show you what I did, and just sort of give you an idea of how I might go about these types of things. Again, it's not, this part of it isn't necessarily a tutorial. I mean, I don't know if any of it's really a tutorial. It's just a watch me do my thing, and if you get anything from it, then that's hopefully a good thing for everybody. So yeah, we'll add these last few tubes around the outside of the hilt, and then I'm not sure if we go to the end of the sword and start working on the kind of cap on the handle, or if we start working on the wrap. I can't really remember. Oh, I do know that we don't end up using this bit of sculpting that we do here. I sculpt this out and come back to this later. So we're going to work on I guess this would be the base or the cap of the handle. I'm not really sure. I'm not a sword guy. Yeah, we're just going to add the shape there, add a few little bits of extra tubing around it there for the gold bit at the end of the sword. And then I'm not really 100% sure what we move on to after that. I guess we'll see when we get to it, because I sculpted this over a few days in my spare time. So yeah, I'm apart from the editing, I haven't really looked at it, since I did it. So yeah. So one of the things I'll say about sculpting is that, the probably one of the best things you can do is just get the mesh in there. Like I keep hearing a saying at the moment, it's like, first of all, just make it exist. You can make it good later. So yeah, I basically go through putting in some of the base shapes and just working on the meshes so that they look close to what I need, and then I'll come back in and work on the details afterwards. So yeah, just make it exist and you can make it good later. Yeah, there we go. So used a bunch of pieces off of the other sword, cut them up, mirrored them, and remeshed so that they were merged, and yeah, just started moving it around into the positions of the reference there. Again, if you've already got something that's partially sculpted, I don't see an issue with cutting it up, duplicating it, and doing all that sort of stuff. So yeah, we're going to add the straps in for the handle of the, I guess it's a katana type weapon. Yeah, these aren't connected. I just made some extractions of it like that around one edge, and then just flipped it around on the X-axis there so that they were going backwards, and then yeah, sort of move them around a little so they look like they should be connected, because I think these are all wrapped with one piece of cloth, but I mean, I ain't got time for all that, so yeah. Yeah, I think we're going to duplicate that up to the other sword in a minute as well. So we don't have to redo all of that. Here we go, adding some of the detail. Again, this isn't like, I know that this isn't what's actually on the sword, in terms of like the sculpting and the pattern around the blade, but I just needed something that was a representation, and it still looks kind of cool, so I went with it. I didn't want to throw too much time at this again, because like I said, the reason behind this series of videos is about sculpting a human, not sculpting patterns on a blade. So yeah, I'll jump back in again when we move off of this, or if anything interesting comes up. so I just like joined everything there. I didn't merge it, I joined it, because then you can separate it again if you need to. And yeah, just duplicated that and moved that up again. These aren't I'm not going for an exact copy of the sword. She just needs to have some blades in her hand that look a little like the swords that she's supposed to be using. So we're going to wrap some material around this. I think I cut this off just because it's the same. Yeah, there we go, I just cut it off. So it's the same process I use for most things like that. So yeah, I just want to quickly say before the video cuts out, thank you for joining me. I hope you're looking forward to the next part of the video, which will start on the torso. So like and subscribe, and yeah, happy sculpting everybody.